Before we get started, I'm going to read our land acknowledgement and our labor acknowledgement, and then I'll proceed on to introduce our guest speakers. William and Mary acknowledges the indigenous peoples who are the original inhabitants of the lands our campus is on today. The Cherokee's, Chickahominy, Eastern Chickahominy, Mattaponi, Monacan, Nansemond, Nottoway, Pamunkey, Potawatomi, Upper Mattaponi, and Rappahannock tribes, and pay our respect to their tribal members, past and present. Our labor acknowledgement. The Board of Visitors acknowledges that William and Mary enslaved people, exploited them and their labor, and perpetuated the legacies of racial discrimination. The board profoundly regrets these activities, apologizes for them, expresses its deep appreciation for the contributions made by African and African American members of its community to the vitality of William and Mary, then, now, and for all time coming, and commits to continue our efforts to remedy the lingering effects of past injustices. Again, welcome to our Porch Talk this evening. I'm Dr. Jawan Johnson, the interim Robert Francis Ings, director of the Lemon Project. And now we're going to focus in on our panelists for tonight. Our panel is Advancing Black Women's Knowledge of Non-Traditional Wellness Practices. First, we have Valerie McConnell. Valerie is a passionate, dedicated health advocate with over 20 years of experience in public engagement, community empowerment, and health advocacy. She has collaborated with spiritual and community-based organizations to improve health outcomes and reduce disparities. She specializes in connecting nonprofits and community-based organizations to design, implement, evaluate, disseminate evidence-based preventive health programs. She empowers families through her work with initiatives such as the Every Baby Guilford of Perinatal Health Ambassador Program. Our next guest we have is Crystal Thompson. Crystal Thompson is a professor in the English department at North Carolina A&T State University, African-American folk spiritualist, healer, educator, writer, and researcher. She advocates for the Black community returning to ancient ancestral spiritual practices and rituals for healing, health, and wellness. Her research includes spirituality, the Black body as a narrative, and Black Southern Gothic or Ethno-Gothicism. Crystal collaborates with a variety of individuals to present at and attend conferences, workshops, and events that invite Black community to not just learn about how and practice, but participate in maintaining health and wellness. Let's give them both a virtual applause as they speak to us this evening.
Hey everyone, I am very fortunate to be here. I'm always grateful to the ancestors, which is what this is honoring. I always say my work is always honoring the ancestors, and that's part of why I do what I do is because the disparity in health justice is quite dismal. If you've done any research with that, then you know that the numbers are not getting any better; they're getting worse. They tend to increase with death rates of maternal death rates and infant mortality rates. All tend to um, continue to increase, which is not something we want. But more than that, there is this call to return to, as Dr. Johnson has said in my bio, there's a call to return to those practices that our ancestors engaged in, because those practices, even though they've been discredited, especially in the scholarship and in academia, um, those practices were practices that were absolute, they were true, and they always invited the community to heal together. So one of the things we're going to be talking about today is how we can return to that, and how that has been something that we both are engaged in, but we it's something we want others to engage in too. Youth, male, female. I know our title has women in it, but we've since revised that to include men as well, because Black men's health is important as well. And all this applies to everyone: children, men, women, adults. It just the elderly. This all applies. So I would like to share my screen just a little bit. Is um, there's a bunch of what I want to show you. There's so much more, but I want to show you just a little bit, because this is a bit of a background about um, how we got to where we are. Let's just say this: how we got to where we are. Let me share my screen with you. I don't know if you can see it or not.
Nothing yet. It said it has started sharing, but we can't see anything.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see if I can now.
No,
Yes, you may want to use your slide.
yeah, we could see it.
Okay.
Um, can you put
Okay.
it in presentation view?
So,
Yes, yeah.
yeah, it's in presentation view. Yeah, so this is um acts, laws that were initially that this was these were laws of the land. And you can see I started at 1688 and I've gone to 1826. And I've highlighted the South Carolina Negro Act of 1740, which is one that's extremely important. These acts here, if you don't know what you're looking at, these all were acts that were intended to prevent and ban Black people across the diaspora from engaging in drumming. Drumming was what was focused on, but there were so many other things, as you can see on the right side of the screen. It might be the left side of your screen: dancing, singing, rocking, food, water, gardening, stomping, and so much more. These were things that were cultural practices and not allowed to be engaged in by Black people. So what that did, and you see the quote here, but it's not a quote. It's actually just something. Our drumming was a way to communicate messages of hope, survival, and community. It was a way to stay in ritual, and our ancestors knew, and they passed it down to each generation, that drumming was medicine. That was a type of medicine that was banned initially in 1688 and further back, but 1688 was a Barbados Act. And again, you can just see how wide this law was of no drumming. Drumming was a way to carry that message of healing. It was a way to carry a message of coming together. And it was a way of carrying stories. So, stories is where a lot of our medicine is. The knowledge of our medicine is in the stories. And those stories can happen at any time, those stories can happen anywhere. But obviously, there are some places where those stories being told is very commonplace. The porch, the kitchen, the backyard, in a car. I mean, there's so many ways that those stories can come about. And what we're focusing on today is we want to focus on those types of medicines and ways that we have um, not just carried on those traditions, but really engaged in practicing them so that they are continued to be honored and celebrated. Um, and so I want to start with dancing, because there's so much more, but Valerie, I know you and I were talking about trying to find some place to dance because it just seems such a communal act, and there doesn't seem to be many places to dance. And we know why dancing is healing, but would you say a little bit more about why dancing is healing?
Yeah, dancing and music, they actually go together,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess if you reach a certain age, or I don't go to clubs anymore. I grew up in New York, and I used to love to go club hopping. I mean, we'd go out and just dance for hours, come home 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. But here, at least we're in Greensboro, North Carolina, we find that the dancing element, unless it's summertime or it's an outdoor festival, it's not as common because I'm not going to go club hopping. But dancing is so much part of the spirit because movement, any movement on a daily basis, whether it's jumping, whether it's bending, and when you dance, all of that is coming. Your arms are going, your legs are going. And I just recently heard a study that in Carnival, and especially in Trinidad and Tobago, that the health rate has declined, even though there's a lot of drinking and eating. But anyone that's been to a carnival or any carnival during any of the islands where you dance for hours and actually for days in the streets, so that's activity that you're doing, that's festival activities. And also in other countries, they have a lot more festivals that are outside, there's dancing, there's singing, and it's participatory. So it's like it's that movement that you're getting in. So you can still eat, but you're dancing away all the bad elements of it. So it's really,
Mm-hmm.
really important to
Mm-hmm.
just do that.
Yeah, I would like to add too, when it comes to dancing, you're talking carnival and festival. There's also the Juhea that happens. That's a little more localized, but dancing is also ritualistic as well as communal. When people are dancing, for instance, if I'm in my office and I'm at an HBCU, so and you are too, you're there as well, Valerie.
Yeah.
So you know that it's nothing to see someone dancing, and then it's also very common to see other people join in. They may not be doing the exact same dance, but there is something to say for, and I can connect this very strongly to religious practices and spiritual practices. Dancing can sometimes also be very spiritual in nature, in that there's a sharing of energy now. There's this energy that's being shared, and dancing around someone is meant to lift their mood.
Are
So
you
that,
are you familiar with the ring shout? The
yes,
ring shout or the
that's
ring shout circles
yes,
where
that's exactly where I'm going with this. Is that
yeah.
that dancing in the circle is intended to bring about a certain energy
Mm-hmm.
to get people to lift their spirit, or even to lift their spirit, not get them to, but it does lift their spirits,
Right.
even if they don't take part in it. I mean, taking part in it
Yeah.
obviously is
Yeah,
a
and I think in
complex
the,
thing.
growing up in part of storytelling, and I just read something about like a Easter Sunday kind of dance where there was an
Hmm.
altar in the center of the church and with a flagpole, and from little children to the adults were going around in a circle, dancing and singing, which is the same exact replica of how they do it in Africa.
Hmm.
That dancing in
Hmm.
circles, going in a ring shout, going in a circle to keep the circle unbroken.
Yeah, to keep the circle unbroken is very significant and powerful. And that's one of the reasons that I highlighted the South Carolina Negro Act of 1740. It was
Mm-hmm.
also one of the acts that not limited, it basically banned all types of drumming. But this act in particular, also along with the Consolidation Act, they prevented what I put over here, the rocking, sort of the swaying when you're dancing to me, not necessarily dancing, but
Did they?
sitting, and
Mm-hmm.
you're rocking. But it also banned a lot of those types of movements that you're talking about, because those movements were known, and especially within the Black population in South Carolina, those movements were always tied to, and of course they were demonized at the time, but they were tied to witchcraft and black magic, dark magic, or whatever have you. And those acts of dancing and those acts of moving with each other were always seen as acts of aggression toward everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
And the assembly, this
Right.
also was meant to ban assembly of black people
Right.
in
Right.
any,
Because
no matter
yeah,
what.
and one of the things like the drum was
Mhm.
a talking drum. It was a message behind the drum. So
Yeah,
that's why they banned it because it carried a message. I
yeah,
mean, there's a lot of messages that were carried, but the drumming was.
yeah,
Was that
yeah.
but you knew the drum call? You knew a certain time that might have been okay. We're going to do this on this plantation, or this is
Right,
happening, and it was based off the drum call, and they knew
right.
that. They knew that, and that drum, gives us empowerment.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. And I think that's the same now with, if you watch any of the fraternities and sororities with the,
Mm-hmm.
so I did put stomping here. I mentioned something one time to my little cousin, who was about to be 12. I mentioned something, she did some movements and I was like, "Oh, so you stomp in the yard?" Just, being
Yeah.
funny with her. And my mom was like, "Well, that's not even stomping." I was like, "Well, she watched the movie. She loves the movie Stomp in the Yard as well." But when I mentioned it, I wasn't mentioning it in a way of saying ceremonially mentioning it, but my mom was very clear that that type of stomping is meant for entertainment. The type of stomping that we did was meant, it kind of took place of the drum, and now we're making those sounds with our feet
Mm-hmm.
and clapping, and that stomping was also meant to send a message. The
Right.
stomping was meant to create a sort of energy in people, where in black people, to where they know, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to do this. Let's go do this. Let's go do
Yeah.
that.
One of
So
the other things about dancing that has come out in the 2000s is line dancing.
right.
When you think of line dancing, I always thought of like West End, like something done in Texas. But we
Mm-hmm.
had the cha-cha, we had the electric slide,
Mm-hmm.
and if you're black, you know how to at least do the basics: the electric slide,
Right.
the wobble.
Right.
Now we have, I don't know the other ones. There's so many more that are coming up. Maybe somebody can put them in the chat for us, some of the other dances. But that song comes on, and who's on the floor? You don't have to
Right.
have a partner. You don't have to anything, but it's that
Right.
movement. I'm here. I'm at this place. So I
Right.
mean, go ahead and put it in the chat if you can think of some more line dances that are
Yeah.
coming.
And the I think we did talk about a circle,
Mm-hmm.
but these line dances, they were also, if you watch some of the traditional African dancing, they're in lines, in rows. And the thought was understanding that being in those lines and being in those rows, again, this is healing, because now it's reverberating through every single line. So everything that the person behind you does, you should hear that. You should feel that with
Mm-hmm.
your spirit. You should know it. And you shouldn't have to look behind you to see what's happening. You
Right.
should just know, because it's in you to know this. And
Right.
that healing part of that is that when you are dancing, I think you mentioned it earlier, you are moving and you are causing circulation, but when you do it with other people,
Mm-hmm.
it's participating in everybody's health and wellness,
Mm-hmm.
not just your own. It's
Right.
it's now everybody's, because you know a lot of the black rhetoricians are keen on saying, whatever you do, Karanga is the father of saying this, I would say, that whatever you do should be for the community, because otherwise you're doing it for naught. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're doing this, if the community can be healed, you are going to automatically be healed as
Right.
well. And
Mm-hmm.
dancing is part of knowing that, but it goes along with singing as well.
Right.
Like you said, music goes together with it. It's like, you ever hear a certain sound, your favorite singer
Right.
hit this certain note, then and it's just like it does something to you
Right.
in your body, in your spirit, because it is meant to heal you with vibrations, but also with the sheer knowledge that it's coming from the ancestors. It's rooted in the ancestors. So
Right.
I think that's. Go ahead. I'm
Right. No,
sorry.
I was going to say, singing this morning, I had the opportunity. I was playing Stephen Marley's, some of his tunes, and I was playing.
Mm,
I played it for at least, maybe 2 hours, and then I
mm-hmm,
got in the car, and Stephen Marley had also a hit with Erica Badu, and again,
mm-hmm.
I said, "Oh, the ancestors, you're speaking to me on this
Yeah.
to just, it's one of my favorite artists, and I'm like googling because of his energy. He puts his soul in
Mm-hmm,
it, and I
mm-hmm.
think he's really, really bringing some of his father, that reincarnating some of that spirit of just truly feeling the spirit of singing, because singing is important. And a lot of us, we should really sing every day, even if it's a
Yeah.
small little tune,
Yeah.
walking down the street, humming, and I always remember going back and remember the ancestors. My grandmother was always humming,
Mm-hmm.
always
Yeah.
humming, and I said, why are you, I said, why are you making that noise? But she
Mm-hmm.
said it was smoothing. It was soothing to her spirit for whatever she
Mm-hmm.
was going through that day. She wasn't going to verbalize to a 9 or 8 year old what she was going through, but she was going to hum it through and work the words, because she knew for this day she had to feed all these children, get us ready, get it to bed, and it was like it was overwhelming for him. But she hummed her way through it.
Yes.
She hummed
Yes.
her way through it. Didn't complain.
Yes.
That was her coping strategy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Uh,
I want to make a distinction between singing and music here because
mm-hmm.
I love listening to Reverend Dr. C.J. Johnson.
I don't know
Um,
who that is.
okay, well, his music, he sang gospel, and majority of what he sung was old slave songs, but he did it without any music. I think he may have one or two songs that were with maybe a piano,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a drum. But majority, I would say 98% of his recordings were in the church. First of all, they were done in the church, and they had no music in the background. It was just singing. And what he said about that was, when you sing, you are making noise, but it is to be joyful. And making that noise breaks down barriers of depression,
Right.
barriers of, just being sometimes not even depressed, just down. Just, I
Just
don't want
being
to go to
down.
anything
Right.
today. Yeah.
And
I don't
that's
want
that's
to.
healing. That's really healing, and
Oh,
that's what we talk about as a healing practice.
oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
used to encourage my children, join the choir, join the
Hmm.
singing, while they were in school, because it releases so that built up tension. When you're just singing,
Yeah.
and whether you can or not, it just releases that stress that you
Yeah.
have on you.
Yeah, and not only that, but those songs, just thinking about certain songs, are very much a story in and of
Mm-hmm.
themselves. They
Right.
are stories. They're ways to get these stories across,
Yes.
and ways of saying, "Hey, go visit the water,"
Mm-hmm.
wade in the
Mm-hmm.
water. I
Right.
mean, there's
Right.
so many songs I could mention right now that it was a message, but it
Right.
also was saying, go to the water for the healing.
Mm-hmm.
That is what you need to do, is go to the water for the healing.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's a whole science behind water being healing. I can't get into all of it right now because it's just so much.
Right.
Uh, there was a time when people were saying, don't drink frozen water. It's not good for your body, but actually, depending on the message that goes into the water before you freeze it, that's what you get in out of it. I'm very, very protective of my water, and I
I
think you
know.
know
Ever
this.
since I've known you, you're like, oh, the water guru and all like that. And I was like,
Yes,
okay, water's. I mean, I'm not saying water's water. You got to be careful, but you're
right.
so you really love that part.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
You
I'm
really,
very
really.
protective of it,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that even if I have what is a towel, which is TAL. It's a water container.
Say that again. T A
It's
L.
towel, TAL. Yes.
Okay.
They're big. They're stainless steel, and they're meant to be pretty much indestructible. But I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine that even touching the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It just something about the water just to me needs to be protected, and I feel like it can absorb, and it does absorb. We know this. It
Mm-hmm.
absorbs whatever spirit you bring to it. If you bring to it troubles, it can take it and carry it away.
Remember, I told you years ago we found something in the store. We were together, and it was a pewter. Am I saying that right? It was a pewter.
Oh yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
So, and my iron has been, low for a number of years and
Mhm,
all. But I've
mhm.
been for the last 2 years putting my water. I found a pewter jar, real pure
Mhm.
one,
Yep.
and I have a filter, and I put the water in there first, and I let it sit some time, and I drink from it. Every time I've gone to get blood work, my elevation numbers have gone up
Yes.
just by taking in that iron from the pewter.
Yes.
That's something I didn't grow up with in mine, but
Mhm,
something I learned from you and we saw in the
mhm,
store that
mhm,
I said, let me try it. So that's
mhm.
what we're talking about. Even if you don't know, it's never too late to learn something new, and all you can do is
Exactly.
try it. And
Exactly.
if my numbers are getting better, that means I'm healing.
Exactly. Exactly. It's that pewter, I remember telling you this story too, that my grandmother, my great grandmother, even my grandfather in his house, they all had a pewter pitcher in the refrigerator that
Mm-hmm.
had water in it, and they gave us water from it every so often, not all the time, because they were very they were very careful about that. It's like, no, 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 you've already had 2 glasses from it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the best water because it had the healing to heal your iron. It had
Mm-hmm.
that in it. It was able
Yeah.
to do that without having a supplement.
Mm-hmm.
I've been telling people a daily multivitamin is not actually that good for you, and I just get those
Mm-hmm.
looks because for one, it doesn't stay with you. That's why you have to take it every day.
Mm-hmm.
If you're getting it through food, or um like you said with the pewter, then that sticks with you, that bonds to your body more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a doctor, so I'm not trying to diagnose or
I'm not a doctor either. I'm a public health advocate, but I'm not a doctor. But I've been recently
right.
putting Celtic salt, like a little
Hmm.
bit in my water because, like you
Hmm.
say, there's certain minerals that your body needs if it's lacking. So I said, let me try this. Keeps,
Yeah.
I feel so much better. You put a little drop of that. A lot of people now drinking alkaline water.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
there's so much that you can do. But let's talk about water, about
Hmm.
going to the waters, the ocean or river or waterfall. What's that like for you?
So I have known since I was a little girl. I put the picture here. This is a collage of all the things we are talking about and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But this photo here is very much reminiscent of the little creek that was in the back of my yard.
Mm-hmm.
My mother was clear that she didn't want us to explore this creek,
Mm-hmm.
and the reason was not because she didn't want us to go to water. It's not because she didn't want us to play in water or any of that, but this creek was very sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time growing up, we knew not to go near it. We if every so often my mom would say, okay, now y'all can go to the creek and play. Y'all can go leave the salamanders alone, but you can go to the creek and play. Don't disturb the rocks. Just
Mm-hmm.
put your feet in, put your hands in, you can splash your body. But the and again, we were children, so we were just doing what mom told us to do because we knew better than not to.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got older, I realized that what she was doing was not so much protecting us as it was protecting this body of water that gave so much to us.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we did not realize it. This creek and any other water source that I go to, or go through, I am very aware of the surroundings of it. And going to it, to me, I know I'm going to be able to release something even if that's not my intention. I know that I'm going to be able to sit by this creek, this body of water. I know I'm going to be able to release all of what's just weighing on me. If there's anything weighing on me, I can do that. I know I can get in it as well and
Mm-hmm.
sort of yell into the water, and it's going to carry it away. Um, there's an African proverb that I know that many people think this is a famous line in a movie. Give it to the water will know what to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually an African proverb, and it's sort of like, I know when I see water, when I hear it, it is automatically healing for me. When I'm cleaning my altar, the water has to be of a certain temperature. It has to come from a certain place. I have to do certain things to even the water that I clean my altar with. And even if I'm just gonna spray like holy water around, I say holy water, but we all know that means something different. But if I'm gonna spray it around to kind of make the air a little bit more positive,
Mm-hmm.
there's things that I have to do before I can get to that point, because again, water is so sacred for me. It's the thing that I don't want anyone to touch my water that I have to drink. But I also understand that water is where the spirit comes from. Many spirits use that as a conduit to go into and to come out of.
Mm-hmm.
So, and if you read Beloved, that's one of the things that Toni Morrison leans into, is that beloved comes from the water. It's
Mm-hmm.
very important because that is a conduit for spirits and spiritual activity. And so it for me, going to water is very relaxing. It is very emotional, because I do understand that my ancestors couldn't necessarily, and I do mean this literally, especially when I'm in South Carolina, which is where my family is from. Um, my ancestors could actually be in the water. Their bodies
Mm-hmm.
could be
In that water.
in that water. Yeah.
Right.
And I would not know that. So
Yeah. Yeah, water is healing, just listening to it, hearing it, the sound. I love walking in the rain. I love putting on some rain boots, a raincoat, umbrella. I hear people say, "Oh, I'm not going outside, it's raining." I'm like, "Why not? I mean, what's the word? Are you going to
right,
melt?" No,
right,
you're healed. And especially if you could walk by yourself anywhere along the stream, going just to yourself, get up and do, like if you're going to the beach. We live quite a distance from it, but if you get up and
right.
catch the sunrise along the beach by yourself, just
Yeah.
hearing the waves, just so healing. I mean, it's just a really, really healing in it. And said rain is cleansing as well. Very, very well, Janelle. It is just to listen to it.
Mhm.
I'm a big advocate of thunderstorms, but that's my energy.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
storms, lightning, kind of. But that's my energy. I don't recommend anybody to have an excitement
No,
over that. But
but the I'm glad you mentioned thunderstorms, because
mm-hmm,
this also relates to the water. I remember many times we would drive from my hometown to another town, just to visit or whatever, or anytime we went across a body of water. My mom always sort of checked it out. That's
mm-hmm.
the only way I can say it. She always checked it out in certain
What do you
ways.
mean by checked it out? What do you mean by
Uh,
checked it out?
just looked at it, like
Okay.
just kind of looked at it to sort
Mm-hmm.
of see what the
Okay.
water was telling her. And
Mm-hmm.
the way the water was moving, she could say, oh yeah, we're getting ready to get that storm they were talking about, or
Mm-hmm.
no, it's not going to storm, I don't know what they're talking about, or and
Mm-hmm.
but also with her, and this is something that I've taken up, and my sister and my nephew now, and I'm trying to pass it to my little cousin. These are things that we were taught. If you want to know what's going to happen with the earth, you need to be able to be in sync with the earth.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And gardening was one of those ways that, we learned how to be thankful. We learned how to provide for ourselves. We learned the value of food, what was sacred, how sacred the soil was, and always taught that we are part of that. Like we have a symbiotic relationship with the earth, with the ground, with the land. And we understood that we didn't own it. It was something that we were in partnership with.
Mm-hmm.
It fed us, it nourished us. We needed to understand that was, that was our blessing, that was our fortune, that was what we were given.
Mm-hmm.
And not necessarily given as an ownership, but that's what we had. what we use to get food. That's what we use to, again, tell those stories of healing. What okra? I don't like okra. And my mom is like, you need to get you some okra. And I'm like, Mom,
Hmm.
I know it is healing. I know it's healthy. I know it helps with diabetes. I'm not diabetic, but it can still help regulate your insulin. And I said, Mom, I have never liked it since I was a little girl. And she's like, I know, but I at least got you to eat it when you were a
Yes.
little girl, but you
Try
can't
it.
do it now because I'm older. So
Try it. So we got a question in the chat. Michelle Cook asks us, "Have you ever stand out in the rain in the nude? It is so soothing. Causes peace of your spirit. Of course, in a private area." Well, Michelle, I can say that's something I never had, but Janelle says yes. Garden in the nude as well. Those are some things I'm gonna have to put on my thing to do. I have never done it. I've done skinny dipping before. I've been at a nude beach before, but there were others around, but never in the swim in the ocean. But I had to try that in a private place.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's a good one. But the garden. Let's talk about gardening and move on to food,
Okay.
and some of the things that you learned with gardening. Hmm.
Well, you know, gardening has always, again, been a ritual thing. It's been ritualistic, it's been community. Um, and one of the first things I learned with gardening is that it takes a multitude of people. And I've tried it by myself, and I just kept thinking, I gotta call my mama to see why my yellow tomatoes aren't actually staying yellow. They're turning. I need to figure this out and figure this out. And that means that you have to be in communication with the community.
You said
But
the key
for
thing,
me,
community. You
yeah,
even a farmer today cannot
yeah,
farm by himself, no
right.
matter how much.
Yes, no matter how much.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I also realized, just with my own garden here, is when my mom said you just have to think back. She always said think back to what
Mm-hmm.
our ancestors had to do, because again, that was one of the things that was, they were banned from gardening certain types of foods
Mm-hmm.
because one, they thought it would ruin the soil, but for two, that was a way of um limiting cultural practices.
Mm-hmm.
So I always thank my ancestors for the knowledge that my mother has given me, the knowledge my grandmother has given me, but also it taught me patience. Of all the
Yes.
things in this world, that taught me patience, because even as a little girl, there were certain things I just did not want to do, like shucking corn. I did not
Mm-hmm.
want to shuck corn.
Oh.
And my grandmother sat me down one time, I remember, on the porch, put a bucket of corn in front of me, shuck it. And she gave me a brush, one of those brushes, and she told me, shuck it. And I kind of looked around, and then, there was like 7 or 8 family members. My sister, my mom, her siblings were there, my grandmother. And it was just like, I just looked at the bucket of corn. And the first lesson that I learned was, you are going to have to ask people. We know you don't like shucking corn, but the way that you respond is to say, hey, can someone else do it, and I'll split the green beans, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll do this if you just, let's trade.
Let's
um
trade. It's that
yeah,
communal aspect, yes,
right,
because
right,
everyone's not meant to do everything.
exactly,
And
exactly.
there's
And
some things like I will grow tomatoes, but my
mhm,
neighbor doesn't want to grow them, and she likes doing okra and other things, which I'm
mhm,
not doing okra. But then
right,
we share because I was like
right,
okra that gets too big and all that. But we
yeah,
share. It's communal
yeah,
because you
yeah,
can't unless you're a farmer and you're going to sell. A lot of times you
mhm,
can't eat. At least in me, I can't eat all of it. And sometimes I
right,
grow things. I grow things just to grow it because I was like,
mhm,
one day,
mhm,
one year I had so much mustard greens because I had a little package, put the seeds in, and they grew. And I was like, I
yeah,
don't even like
yeah.
mustard greens. But then I
Right,
find people that said, you like mustard greens? I got a whole bag for you, and I give them away.
right.
But it's
No,
that whole. To me, gardening is playing in the dirt. I won't even say
yeah,
playing, but
yeah.
working in the dirt is just healing. When I go
Mhm.
outside, I can stay for hours. I can
Oh
sit for
yeah.
hours just moving things around and mucking to
Mm-hmm.
the compost and just moving
Mm-hmm.
from this side. Is it getting enough sun? Is it too much sun? Just like
Mm-hmm.
last week on Saturday, it was very hot working in my garden. And then Monday, I was like, wait a minute, it's 30 something. Is the frost going to hit it? But,
Mm-hmm.
and one thing you said about community is I'm always talking to other gardeners to say, how are you? How is your plant doing? Well, so far my peppers didn't do this, so you kind of share ideas, or maybe you need to do this with the saw, so you get little tips.
Mm-hmm.
I said in the next lifetime I might grow up on a farm, and
Yeah.
and learn it. But it didn't happen. But I said I love it now. I love eating the food. Right now I'm watching my blackberries get ready to
Mm-hmm.
blossom, and by June I'll
Mm-hmm.
have a tree that I started with a blackberry tree. And anyone can garden anything, anywhere. You could try with
Yeah.
pots on your porch. And I know this is a porch series, so you can do everything in pots, plants, little bags. I started with a blueberry tree that I got for $7.99 at Aldi's. I said, huh, let me
Mm-hmm.
try it. I put it
Mm-hmm.
on the side in the dirt. They said it would take 2 years to grow. Now it has been, this is going in the eighth year that one 7.99 plant from Aldi's is producing blackberries.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
it.
about having too much, that is something else I learned too,
Mm-hmm.
is when you have too much, don't think of it as too much. And so, something else my grandmother mainly taught us is not to count what you have,
Mm-hmm.
because that's gonna, first of all, it'll ruin the garden because you're expecting more, or whatever. But part of that community too was, if you grow too much, so if you get too many blackberries, or if you get too much, that is your blessing. So that is what you give away. You give away that excess for the reason of saying thank you to the ground. And I like that you said playing in the dirt, but it really is, when you think about it, um especially with our ancestors, one of the ways they knew what to plant where was by looking at that dirt and what the soil was doing, and how it looked. Was it, again, too dry? Was it too moist? Was this an area that you could look at the soil and say, okay, green beans must have grown here because of this,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to grow my tomatoes here because I know those green beans might come back, and tomatoes take
Yes, because you
over.
know what's in there. We got
Yeah.
some comments in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Phyllis says, I live in Arizona and I find that I have to take a trip every now and then to the ocean. It just relaxes and it is very healing. Also, from a young child, we lived in Indiana on the Ohio River, and I remember how relaxing it was as well. Very good, Phyllis. AG says, how do you keep the birds from eating your blackberries before they are grown? Well, AG, I think to spirit that I pray before I plant, or every season. I do not have a problem with birds eating my blackberries. It's just my area that's not a problem for me. So I don't know. But possibly you could maybe Google it and see what natural remedies you have. But I don't have a problem with birds, squirrels, deers. I actually saw a rabbit in my yard the other day, and I have a lot of lettuce. I came out the next day, and the lettuce was still there. I don't worry because I just spirit has that. Um, um,
I
race.
like this, but yeah, oh yeah, I was gonna say I really like this by Rayshana Gray,
You
talking
ready?
about
Okay.
swimming and swaying for neurodivergence. I used to work as a behavior therapist, and that's one of the things I never ever took part in, was stopping any of the people, especially the younger people, from the sort of swaying and rocking. One of the things that I was told was that they needed to stop. That when they do that, just kind of put your hand on them, and they will stop. And I'm just like, but they don't. Maybe not stop, because this is their way of soothing. Babies do it. I mean, grown people do it. And sometimes you can do it without really realizing that you're doing it. But it is a way to self soothe. It's a way to and I know this is gonna, for some of you, this may sound a little out there, but we are talking about spiritual healing here as well. This is also one way to stay in balance with the ancestors. If you believe that ancestors move around you, this can sometimes be that way of moving that energy so that the ancestors can stay in that space with you, inviting them into that space. But for the most part, that rocking and swaying, which was banned a while back, in those acts that I've first posted or showed on the first slide, that was one of the things that was just banned, was no rocking, no swaying, no none of that body movement, especially not together, because again, that is very healing. It's very very healing, for everyone.
One of the things I find, I've been doing it recently, when I'm in meetings, especially with corporate, kind of
Mm-hmm.
America, and it's not something I really want to be in. If I could get my foot under the table, just tapping and kind of
Mm-hmm.
rocking,
Mm-hmm.
if I'm moving the body, but just moving the foot, it is so
Mm-hmm.
smoothing to get
Yeah.
on to the next presenter or whatever subject matters ahead of me. And I find
Mm-hmm.
versus just, some people doodle and draw, but I find that moving that foot underneath the table, just tapping as if I'm, singing, but, something nobody can
Right.
see.
Right. And
But
the feet and the hands are areas where they're highly energized already.
yes.
I still believe in the idea of laying hands on, because there is energy that radiates from your hands. But um, that tapping of the foot is
Mm-hmm.
also a way to get your energy going and
Mm-hmm.
flowing. And a lot of times I tell people, that's, of course, stomping was one of those ways. I still participate in stomping myself, and it has nothing to do with the fraternity sorority type of stepping. They call it stepping. It has nothing to do with that. It's actual practice of stomping. Growing up, my mom told us, don't stomp in this house. You better not stomp in this house because
Mm-hmm.
that's something meant for outside, because the
Mm-hmm.
earth and the ground is energy already.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in that sort of environment where there's dirt, grass, and you can walk barefooted, you're giving that energy to that ground, and
Mm-hmm.
it's again, it's reciprocal. So that whole energy of tapping the foot and clapping the hands is just, that's a way of not just getting the energy flowing, but keeping it, maintaining that energy, and
Mm-hmm.
maintaining that healing of the tapping and the.
Yeah, that's a good point. One of the things that I do also, and we can move on and talk about hair. A lot of times, I will, if I'm washing my hair, a lot of times in the summer, I will take my water, and sit it out in the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I wash my hair and I go and I use the actual water that's heated from the sun to rinse, the shampoo out of the
Mm-hmm.
conditioner and just that natural. Sometimes I try to get my rainwater and it's just so healing. So tell me a little
Yeah.
bit about some of your hair rituals that you've been told. Mm-hmm.
This goes right along with the hands having that energy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, don't let everybody play in your hair. That's the
Why
that is
not?
the
Why
thing.
can't other people? Nobody can touch your hair. Why not?
No, that's the saying, and I have lived by that because I don't know if anybody has read Mama Day. There's
Mm-hmm.
the
I have.
scene um where the lady actually does Coco, I think's hair, and maybe
I
her
can't
name's not.
remember the book, but I did read it. It's been so
Yeah,
long.
I can't remember some of the names, and it's sad too because that's part of my dissertation. So I better start remembering these character names. In Mama Day, she does her hair, and I won't say what all she used. The book doesn't say what all she uses because obviously someone could replicate that and hurt someone. But there are different things. Sulfur is the base of what's used,
Mm-hmm.
and then other things, of course, are crushed up, and that's used as grease for her hair, and she doesn't know it, but that makes her sick, like
Mm-hmm.
deathly sick.
Right.
And that's what starts that chain of, we need to figure out how to cure her
Right.
of this thing.
Right.
But in with hair, it is so common for it to be what's looked at, what's gazed upon, to figure out whether you're sick, whether you need certain minerals and
Mm-hmm.
nutrients,
Mm-hmm. Right. Why is your
whether
hair falling out? Why is it
yeah,
turning, gray? Well, you
yeah,
got
why do I
split
have
ends.
damaged ends? Not yeah, it's like
Right.
why is
It,
this happening?
right.
And you can think about what all happens or happened back in the
Mm-hmm.
day, what people did back in the day. But truthfully, when my mom looks at my hair, she can always say, and I've got it covered now, but she can always say, you know what? You need to eat more greens, or
Mm-hmm.
let's get some beets and greens. Let's
Right.
get your iron up, because obviously with those split ends, that's not just something you're
Mm-hmm.
not doing right. And I had a moment where my hair was just, I felt like it was damaged. I felt like more of it was shedding than it needed to be. And
Right.
I panicked for a little bit because I love my hair. And I told my mom about it, and she was like, oh, mm-hmm. I was like, oh, mm-hmm. And she was like, okay, seriously. And she sounded just like a doctor.
Right.
Okay, this is what I need you to do for a month. I want
Mm-hmm.
you to eat greens every single day. I don't care how you get it, turnips, collards, dandelion, I don't care. Get greens
Every
every
day.
single day. And I did. Every single
Mm-hmm.
day I had something, romaine lettuce, spinach, something. And I mean, every day, all day,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, every day. And later on, I realized, okay, maybe I overdid it because now my hair is extremely thick
Mm-hmm.
and the split ends are gone. And
Mm.
obviously, my mom was right, because all she had
Wow.
to do was look at my hair and say, oh, I know what's going on with your hair. And she can do that with other people's hair. It's like, yeah, no, it's just you just getting old, it's falling out. You'll be okay. And I'm
You'll be okay. But hair care is like important, and especially in the
yeah.
black community for women and for men, because when we
Hmm.
take care of our hair, it's a ritual. So
Yes.
like when you're
Yes.
a small child and your mom says we're gonna wash our hair today, you knew you were getting prepared for a ritual. You were gonna spend
Yeah.
time standing over the sink, over the bathtub. That was that
Hmm.
closeness with your mom. It was maybe
Hmm.
story time when it was time to
Hmm.
braid. If you
Yep.
had to go to the barber shop, and dad or mom said we're going to the barber, you knew there was a process, and you knew once you got
Yeah.
into that barber shop what was going to happen, because you were going to begin to dialogue and talk, just not with the
Hmm.
hair, but you felt like a therapy session.
Right.
And it's time for that healing, but also when you the ritual part of hair, if you put your hair in braids, and it's time to take your hair out, what do we do as black women? We go, okay, we're gonna take our braids out this weekend, right? So we know what's that mean. We're not going out on Friday or Saturday. We're gonna get our good Netflix. We're gonna get our food. We're gonna get a good book. We're gonna sit down and we're gonna spend time with ourselves. I mean, some people pay to get their hair taken out. I just think that's on them. But that's time for yourself. And it may take you 1 hour, it may take you 2 hours, or it may take you to you get the back done first, and maybe you could cover it up, get a little, go to work the next day. But that's a healing process, and that's a ritual
Mhm.
that you know you have to do,
Mhm.
to take care of your hair. And we
Mhm.
did that growing up as African American girls. We had to until we got to the
Mhm.
age of it's best to teach your children how to take care of it when they become
Right.
teenagers. That you talk about it. You tell stories of hair. It's become how do we now people they may just slap on a wig. I've had one or two, but also underneath it's natural. It's natural
Mhm.
hair.
Mhm.
And recently, I heard they changed the name of maybe someone put it in the chat. Tracy Ellis Ross, like her, she wears her hair in an afro, but they're not calling it an afro anymore. It's calling something else. Let's see, we have something in it. Oh, a
Yeah.
cloud bob. Yes, that's what it's called. Um,
Yeah. I
um,
like that. I always think of my maternal great grandmother who
mhm.
always burned her hair instead of, oh, yeah.
Yes,
And
yes,
that's
yes.
something that we learned very
Hmm.
early on. Do not throw your toenail and fingernail clippings away. Do not throw your hair away. All of these things. And, that's also ritual. The burning it is,
Hmm.
is very ritual, because now that hair is not attached to you. And people. might think that it's just so weird, but if you take some of your hair after, I'm not saying cut it or anything, don't pull it out, but it's naturally comes out in your brush or comb or detangler
Hmm.
or whatever. And if you set it down, you can still see it moving because it still has your spirit in it. And
Hmm.
anybody gets a hold of that, they are essentially getting a hold of your spirit. So burning it releases it of its spirit, but it also
Yeah.
makes it so no one can do any harm to you um, with your hair. With
Yeah.
and also it's symbolic of, okay, this hair was no longer beneficial for me on my
Hmm.
head. It's
Right.
time to release this hair.
It's time to
So
release it, right?
yeah,
And that's a ritual process. If
right.
if you have like they call it the cutting ceremony, or if you have locks and you're
Yes,
going to release it, it's a ceremony process that you do. You should just go in and chop. But and I also like the idea of like who touches your hair. I don't know anyone. I mean, I particular on it, but I've given a story once since we're doing storytelling. I was in Virginia Beach once, Williamsburg, in a hotel in the elevator, and I'm on one side of the elevator, and a person's on the other kind of elevator. I think it was Caucasian, and he says, "Oh, I really," and I had just did my hair, just washed it. You had the shea butter in it. It was shining, popping. Spent 2 hours and it
uh-huh.
was just popping. And he said, and he started, he said, I love your hair. He started coming to my side of
Oh
the elevator,
no.
had his hand out. I had to bend down, run to the other side, and there was a person sitting in this corner was looking at me like, what the heck is going on? Because he was literally going to touch it. Because it was
Right.
the shea butter, everything was just coming out. I said,
Yeah.
really? That was the first time I ever had a total stranger try to touch your hair. And
Yeah.
that sticks
Yeah.
with me. That sticks with us.
Yeah.
That's good. Who says, thank
So
you so much for
we're
sharing that?
almost just a little bit out of time, but
Yeah,
I
how
do
we doing on
want to
time? I
respond
have
to
almost a hard
yeah.
stop, but how we doing, Dr. Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
well, you have about 3 minutes.
Okay.
okay. Well, I wanted to end with, I want to say something about what Rashana is saying in the chat. Thank you so much for sharing that because of family issues, the reasons why didn't always get passed down. So for about a year after I started exploring my South Carolina roots, well, my Aunt Hazel, who was 90 something when she passed, not and that was just recently, was very transparent about us being Gullah Geechee and about us the reason why we cook so differently in my family. Because I always thought all black people cook. I was like, all black people cook like this, but that was not the case. And some other things that I noticed were just a little bit different. And some of the things that I'd heard my grandparents say, my grandmother, my mother say, I always question them. I was like, well, wait a minute, why can't I walk barefooted outside during this time? And so I found out the reason just by, putting two and two together. But Rashana, I would like to say, don't be so upset about not understanding why, because all the information you need, everything you would like to know about what has been told to you, or if somebody just said something and didn't say, okay, this is why, that information is already inside of you. You just have to unlock it. We
Mm-hmm.
and I like to say that, and no disrespect to anyone else, but with black people in our culture, we understand that there is nothing new under the sun. Everything we know, everything we pass down, it is already in us to know. We don't have to go look for it. It's in us. You go out and, like Valerie was saying, I don't know about blackberry. I'm just get this tree and plant it and see.
Mm-hmm.
It will come to you how to take care of that tree because your ancestors are in you.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be because you are alive, so they have to be in you. So that's just what I wanted to kind of leave with.
Yeah. Any other closing remarks from you, Valerie?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Johnson. Thank you, Crystal. I think this is a wonderful presentation. We really
Yeah.
enjoyed that, and we hope everyone is a takeaway and taking away some of these sharings and teachings that we have and remembering your roots and your ancestors.
Yes. Well,
Yes.
thank you, ladies, so much. This is what the Porch Talk is about, sharing, exchanging our stories.
Hmm.
We're passing this on to you. So we recorded this session tonight. Thank you all for joining us. Those who have been very interactive on chat, I see, which is
Yes. We wanted it to be. We wanted to be interactive, so I'm glad everyone is chiming in. Thank you.
I'm gonna put
thank,
my email address in the chat if that's okay.
Hmm.
sure.
Um, and people can reach out to me anytime they would like.
Yeah, and I'll put
You,
mine in there also.
You
yeah.
have the email, so feel free to save that information, you all. I'll wait on Valerie.
There we go.
So you have those emails there, screenshot, however you want to capture that,
Hmm.
and to follow up with our guest speakers. Again, thank you all so much for joining us. Have a safe remainder of the week. Um, take advantage of the sunshine, take
Hmm.
advantage of the waterways if you're around that.
Yeah.
Take advantage of being with your friends and your family and communing this over this weekend. So with that, have a blessed weekend.
All
All
right.
right. Thank
Thank
you.
you.